40,000. Is that a good guess?
Well, there's not many. If there was 1,000, then we'd be lucky.
30,000?
30,000?
Yeah.
Would that be your guess?
No, I'd say about 10,000.
Honestly, I would have absolutely no idea.
Very small minority of people, I'd say.
I think the total population in Ireland is probably decreasing, and I think it's probably at about 2,000.
We used to be about, we were about 5,000 souls just after the war, and now we're down to what, about 1,000.
למען בריתו אשר בבשרנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, קורא תבריא. אלוהינו ולאבותינו קיים את הילד, הזה לאביו ולאמו ויקרא שמו בישראל. הלוי ישמח בו ויוצא חלציו, ותגד עמו בפרי בטנה, ככתוב ישמח אביו ועמך ותגד הולדתך ונאמר, ואעבור עלייך ואראך בין פוססת בדמיים.
ומלך בדמיים
חיים. ומלך בדמיים.
The Gaza community is so small, there's very few babies, there's very few younger children as such. So Kobe could be the only baby born this year, yeah. And
Does that worry you at all?
No, not at the moment. It's going to worry us when Kobe gets a bit older because we'd like to give him a Jewish education, which is very important because we have that, and I would not like to starve him of any cultural aspect of Judaism. So there is going to be problems, but I think we'll do, as best we can to give him a Jewish upbringing.
I think people are always surprised to find us Irish Jews, like, oh wow. But I mean, it's all very well, I always find that funny. Oh, like there's Irish Jews. But when I was in Israel once, I met a guy from Casablanca, and I was amazed, oh my God, there's Jews in Casablanca, which to me was as amazing as, there's like an American person going, there's Jews in Ireland. So it just depends on where you are.
Yeah, a lot of people, you say you're Jewish, oh, so you're from Israel? No, I'm from Ireland. A lot of people can't grasp that.
I don't feel that there's a difference between like Irish and Jewish. I don't feel I'm Jewish and then I'm Irish, or I'm Irish and I'm Jewish. I just am Irish, and I love being Irish. Like, I'm very proud of both Irish and Jewish. So I would never try and deny anything. Like,
one by one, all the little Jewish things have been cut off. As I've been growing up, the Jewish Youth Club has now become a non-denominational youth club. We used to have a Yom Kippur dance every Yom Kippur. That's stopped now. The youth groups are still struggling on, but there's less and less people to man them now, and there's sort of been more sort of non-denominational youth groups. Jewish magazines that were published have been one by one closed down.
Yes,
I want to live in London.
Yeah, Manchester or London.
Or
I like the amount of,
Yeah, my mum said my mum said she wouldn't even think of sending me to Jewish school if I was in London because there's so many.
There's not enough Jews here to mix around with because there's hardly any in Dublin.
I didn't go to Jewish school, so it wasn't I didn't really have any Jewish friends until I left school when I was about 17 or 18. So all of my sort of formative years in school were with non-Jewish friends.
it's very sad the way things have gone away. I mean, it used to be, two shuls, two vibrant shuls, a lot of things going on, great fun. Now it just seems to be the old people who go to shul every week. There's no new people coming in.
It's indicative of the fact that there's not enough Jewish life or Jewish interest in the people that are still Jewish in the community to sustain these activities and to pass it on to the next generation?
Why I actually left and came back because I stayed because I'm a real home person, homey family person, and I like the life here. And so a lot of my friends left, and I was like left on my own here. So I had a lot of non-Jewish friends and a non-Jewish boyfriend, which got quite serious, and my mum and dad weren't happy about that at all. So an opportunity came up for me to take a room in a student house in Manchester, where there's a huge Jewish community, loads of people my age, and so I took it to see what it was like, and I hated it.
When I was in school, it wasn't the case of, oh, you can only go out with Jewish girls. So I didn't really know any Jewish girls. So I was I would have maybe dated non-Jews. But I mean, it's not, when you're in school and you're whatever, 16, 17, it's not really going to be that serious. Whereas after I left school and was in college, I got involved in Jewish Students' Union. And so then basically I went from having no Jewish friends to all my friends were being Jewish. So then, then it was a lot easier to go out with Jewish girls, if there were any around who would go out with you, basically.
It was extremely hard to find somebody Jewish in Dublin. Like, they used to try and do this Yom Kippur dance like every year, and they'd to try and couple everybody off or something. And it was grand, like when we were 16, 17, 18, there was like these dances. It was good fun. And then gradually it started being less and less people. So in the end there was like 5 guys and like 10 girls, and it was just pathetic. There's no way. I mean, these are people that you've grown up with your entire life. They're like brothers. There's no way there would be any sort of attraction there. Like,
most of the friends I grew up with have left. They've all emigrated. Wow. For many different reasons. Most of them will probably be job opportunities. Some reasons would be they wanted to find other Jewish people or a sense of a greater Jewish community abroad, which they weren't getting here, sense of choice here. I mean, when you've been out with every girl that's in the community, it's like there's very little else you can do except look to the younger people growing up or the older ones,
But the reason why I left was because I thought that there were no Jewish guys here for me, and I went in search of one.
If you want to have Jewish children, or Jewish successors, say, you really have to think about marrying in.
Do your parents tell you that you should marry someone Jewish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catholics, the way the staunch Catholics and the staunch Orthodox is very similar. They all seem to think that their religion is more important than the next one, really, and I suppose it's a way of self-preservation, just to keep it in the genes.
My parents would probably prefer to see their kids leave Ireland and marry someone Jewish than to stay here, because it is a dying community, and if I ended up staying here and being married and having Jewish kids, by the time that comes around there'll probably be no Jewish brownies and Jewish guides for them to go to. There'll be no Jewish BBYO for them, and I would probably have to accept the fact that either they're going to stay here and marry out, or that they're going to leave.
If you want to live here and you want to have a Jewish wife, it's difficult. But I don't necessarily think the answer is going elsewhere. You might find someone Jewish, but then again you mightn't.
I do see myself married to Daniel, hopefully. I can't imagine my life without him, because we are so alike in just being family people, and he gets homesick like I get homesick. And eventually, when he gets his act together and stops being afraid of responsibility, maybe. I remember the first time I was with him, I came home and it was half 2 in the morning, and I really wanted to go into my mum, but I waited in the morning and I was like, guess who I was with last night? You'll never believe it,
What was your first date?
It was the student union thing. It was on the Thursday night, and there was a student union intervisit on, and I knew he'd be there, and I actually bumped into him on that Tuesday before, and we went to Annabelle's, the club.
And that was it? That was a formal date, or that was...
No, it just...
Did you do that here?
We did have formal dates before that.
No, it wasn't. I wouldn't call them dates.
We went to the art gallery and stuff.
But I wouldn't call it a date, really.
In terms of going out with a non-Jewish boy and going out with a Jewish boy, that deep down I think that there is a difference because it's in your blood. And definitely, I think
I don't
there is.
disagree. It's just a lot easier, it's a lot handier. You don't have to explain things, you know?
It's more the same, and what does everybody say? Marriage is difficult enough.
People are happy, like, it's like, oh, you know, great, 2 Jewish people are going out. But like, everyone, it's not like Fiddler on the Roof where everyone gets up and starts dancing and singing.
It's not. But then on the other hand, I think though that couples like me and Daniel and Emma and Colin, which is Daniel's best friend and his sister, Lisa and Ken, I mean, we are the future of the community. If we marry, stay here and have children, we're the future of the community. I mean, so all eyes are looking on us.
I don't believe that at all.
I do.
I don't.
Why not?
People are too busy getting on with their lives to worry about me. I mean, really, I don't think that, you know, people in the community are sitting at home going, you know, Daniel Miller, he's the future of the community.
Me, yeah, I plan future. I think future and I plan. He doesn't.
Fine, but like if you planned future, then like if you lived in the 60s and you planned future, everyone would have concrete bunkers under their houses, you know, in case they were nuked out of existence during the Cold War. So I mean, people did, but a majority of people just got on with their daily lives. There was a lot more to be, you know, if you really want to think of the future, there's more important things to think about, the environment, etc., than, you know, what your children are going to do. More pressing needs that you have to be worried about. You never know, maybe the chief rabbi of the world will stand up and go, we should all convert to Buddhism.
No way.
You never know, I mean...
There'll always be a shill here. There's more than just those two, they're just the big ones. There'll always be something.
There could be Martians might come down in the sky in 20 years. I mean, you never know.
You'd like that, wouldn't you?
I'd love it. Mars would be somewhere I could go.
Everybody, come on. Oh, Danny boy. Oh, Danny boy. I love you so.
Do you know anything about the Jewish community that's here, or that is?
The Jewish community. The Jewish community lived for many, many years in what is in Clanbrassil Street. But Clanbrassil Street it was redeveloped and the street was widened and that, and they moved out. The synagogue now is in one of the suburbs in Rathgar. I think we've only one synagogue actually. There's quite a strong Jewish community actually here in the city, in fact.
One of our guides is Jewish.
Huh?
One of our guides is Jewish.
Yeah, one of our guys is Jewish.
This is the Irish Jewish Museum. It has been in existence since 1985 when Chaim Herzog, former president of Israel, came here on a state visit to Ireland, and he formally opened the museum during his visit. Well, this is the only, shall we say, exhibition area available in Ireland of the Jewish religion, the Jewish way of life. The unfortunate feature, of course, is that the population, the Jewish population here are declining. It's declining very fast.
I was the last Jew to leave Limerick. We had a synagogue there and a small community at one time, about 25 to 30 families. And eventually, during the war years, most of them left. You know, I've seen the demise, we'll say, of the Limerick little community where I grew up in, and it's happened in Cork, and it's happening in Belfast at the moment. And I'm afraid Dublin is, maybe as you said, in 25 years, maybe the end of the community here. We hope not, but unfortunately, that's the way it's looking. So there you are.
I think the unique feature about the Irish Jew is that, having come from what was the Eastern European bastion of Judaism. The Jew here has integrated well with Irish society, and as the Irish people are welcoming and kind and thoughtful in every sense of the word, the Jew has turned out to be the same type of person here.
I eventually showed my first painting for sale when I was about 19 or 20 years of age. I kept on painting and I've painted ever since. With regard to any Jewish feeling that might be in my painting, there is, I think there is a degree of Jewish feeling in the painting. I became fascinated in my late teens with the work of James Joyce. I first collided with Ulysses when I was about 19 or 20 years of age. I actually masqueraded as Leopold Bloom, the principal character from Ulysses, from 1976 onwards. I've been doing it for about 20 years. So I got a suit made in the manner of Leopold Bloom. If you've lived in Dublin, you're walking the streets of Ulysses. I'm living in Capel Street. This is Capel Street. This is important. This is bang the middle of Dublin. This is the middle of Ulysses. So we're right in the middle of Joyce land here, right in the middle of it. So Joyce is very much a part of my life. The fact that I happen to be Jewish, it's an extra thing for me. Obviously, yes, that interest is there, of course, and I can see a lot of the inaccuracies that Joyce had in the book about Judaism and stuff like that, because anyway, that's another day's work, but it's a lot of fun. The one thing that Ireland has done as well, it's very hard to speak English anywhere in the world and not to be influenced by Irish literature. You're going to be influenced by Bernard Shaw, you're going to be influenced by Oscar Wilde, you're going to be influenced by James Joyce, you're going to be influenced by W.B. Yeats, you're going to be influenced by Joyce. It's become part of our mentalities, and we have in Ireland, we have intellectually colonised the whole English-speaking world through literature. Now nobody objects to intellectual colonisation, because it's becoming part of you and it's enriching you, and that's what Ireland has done for the world, and that's what the Jews have done for the world. My only roots are Dublin and a Dublin Jewish community, and I figure that having seen the history of the modern Jewish community in Dublin, as you might call it, which embraces, I'm 60 now, so it's actually 60 years of the Jewish community. Today it has become decimated for a number of reasons, and I'm saddened by what we have left today, because I think what was once a very viable community has been let go to rack and ruin by lack of leadership and lack of vision.
You know, people talk about Ireland's peak time, you know, when there was a large Jewish population. In terms of world population, the reality of it is it was never really large, but it was considerably large, at least 4 times, and some say 4 times larger than what it is now, a population of probably something like 1,300. The only thing which has kept the Jewish people going is the religion. When you have world powers throughout history, which really were the greatest, and they used to turn around and they would attack the Jew and say, we're going to eradicate you. And the end result being that none of these great empires are really in existence anymore. Melech, Asher, Kishani b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al nitzilat lulav. Turn it around now. Turn the etrog around and shake the lulav. Okay, Tanya.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al nitzilat lulav.
I found in the dialogue which I've had with the non-Jewish clergy, that they too show a great respect for the Bible. They see its significance, and they feel that we are the true owners of it.
What's the nickname for the county of Wicklow? What's the other name for the county of Wicklow?
The Garden of Ireland.
The Garden of Ireland. And who is the most famous Wicklow man of all?
I tried to get the eldest children, the 17-year-olds, to come along. Now, at the moment, there aren't that many 17-year-olds within the community. And they just weren't interested.
It's the same kids doing everything. We see the same people in school all day long. When we go to Shull, it's the same people. When we go to BBY, it's the same people. And people, we socialise with the same people. It's the same, like, 10 friends.
So they feel like
everything.
siblings, brothers and sisters.
Yeah, definitely.
Anytime people play.
I'd like to stay. It's not nothing against the city. You know, it's a wonderful place to live. And I've been here all my life. It's just,
it's not Jewish.
You know, if you want to keep your Jewish identity, you really have to go.
I haven't had anybody approach me with a problem of saying, I'm living here, I want to live here, I can't find anybody to marry, can you find somebody for me? And notwithstanding that, I'm well aware that there are a number of people who do fall into that category. People that have gone to university here, people that are working here, people that, as far as I can see, intend to remain here. And there is that difficulty. Some of them are close friends with people that they were school with. I don't think that they necessarily want to marry them. And I would like to think that they won't feel forced in such a situation out of lack of choice. I certainly hope that that wouldn't happen.
When I was 22 years of age, my own background is come from the Irish Catholic tradition, and my husband was from the Irish Jewish tradition. I did my nursing training in Sheffield. I came back home to work in Ireland, and on the very first day that I started in this particular hospital, the Meath Hospital, as the staff nurse in charge of casualty, I met Jeff.
This classical sort of a doctors and nurses thing. And basically what happened was, I think she was working as a nurse somewhere, he walked in, and the story goes it was love at first sight, and then all the heartache came afterwards, I suppose. Like they fell in love. Dad would only marry her if she was Jewish.
The idea in those days was that if a Catholic girl were to marry a Protestant, or outside of the religion, it would be an effort to get that person converted. There was no such thing as live with other cultures and accept other people's religious beliefs. It just wasn't there in the 60s. This was a very different country in the 60s. But I was working in various hospitals, and my own friends would have been scandalized and horrified, and I would immediately split with them. You know, I never told my mother that I intended converting. I just couldn't. I just left home on a certain day, came to work in Dublin, and I never went home again.
I mean, they were a very staunch Irish Catholic family, which, you know, down the country, it's extremely important to them, their religion. And they just couldn't believe that my mother would actually, you know, choose to marry somebody of a different faith.
My father was dead a long time. You know, I always missed him. But on that occasion, I did say, I'm glad Daddy's dead, because it would have broken his heart. Like in those days, it just would. And I understand it, you know, betraying your traditions, turning your back on everything you've been brought up to believe in. And now myself, as a mother and all that, I understand it perfectly, that you just wonder why somebody rejected everything you put into them. And especially coming from a small town like I did, everybody would know. And, you know, I brought shame on my family.
I know that it cost her a lot to convert, in terms of family, and in terms of what her friends maybe thought about it, or I mean especially her family, and just all the time and the heartache, and then trying to be accepted by the Jewish community, which is fairly small here anyway. I know that was very difficult.
I was given a book list, and I was told to, first of all, learn Hebrew, to find myself a teacher. And I remember I began to cry, and he said, the rabbi said to me, you know, you seem very upset. And I said yes, and he said, well, he said, this was Diane Lou, he's dead now. He said, you know, I don't know why. He said, because 98% of the people, we say at this point, we don't want to see you anymore. He said, but I haven't said that to you. I've given you a book list.
And so she converted the first time, I think, into the progressive Judaism here. And of course that wasn't accepted by the Orthodox Jewish peoples.
There was enmity between the progressive movement and the Orthodox at the time. And the Orthodox chief rabbi did see me. He wasn't friendly, he wasn't unfriendly, he was correct. And he let me see from the very first interview how very, very hard it was going to be.
I was in this sort of preschool, sort of kindergarten, sort of junior infants, we'd call it here. And it was a Jewish school. It was a school called Zion Bloomfield Avenue Schools. And I came home one day, and this I suppose I would have been about 3 years old or something like that. I came home one day and said to Mum, you know, Mum, I don't think they think I'm Jewish in that school. Mum was like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Some children did say to Leslie, oh, you know, you're not Jewish, and they wouldn't let him, when he was 4 at this stage, even join the Hebrew singing class.
I said to Mum, like, well, every time that they get the Jewish kids to play, they send me off and get me to play on the rocking horse by myself, you know. And Mum was like, oh, really?
So we were very, very upset at that point, and Jeff went down to the school and asked for an explanation, and it was at that point they said, take your children away, they should never have been taken in the first place, their position is not clear.
And this was about the time that Mum was in the process of converting from being traditional to Orthodox. You know, she was trying to be Jewish, and she said, and they said his position is not clear. And Mum said, yeah, but you've got loads of like non-Jewish people in the school.
In the national school system in Ireland, if you have enough numbers, Protestant children or Methodist or Jewish can have a national school, and the government will pay towards it. And sometimes you can get the numbers up by bringing in other children from a different tradition. And that was the case with the Jewish school. There were a lot. I'd say the ethos predominantly in those days was Jewish, but there were a lot of Christian children, Catholic and Protestant, in the school. And but according to the Din, their position was quite clear. Mine wasn't. And my children were mixing with Jewish children, thinking they were Jewish, and they weren't.
I wasn't being considered as being Jewish or non-Jewish, and they said, we've been to talk to you about Leslie for a while. We'll have to get you we'll have to ask you to leave. You can get him taken out of the school, like, you know. And so I had to leave. I left. It was the only school. I've been to 13 different schools in my life. It was the only school I was ever asked to leave from, was junior infants, because it was the wrong religion.
She was like an absurdity, like in the community, just something to stare at. And well, from what she said, it was very hard for her, trying to force her way in on Friday nights and study away, extremely hard. Go to Israel, a place she didn't know, you know. If you're not Jewish, like, Israel can be very daunting, like, I think anyway.
She made a third conversion in Israel when we were there the first time. She actually got married to my dad 3 times, and in the last time she got married, all 3 of us were waiting in the car for them to come out afterwards, and finally she was accepted by the Orthodox Judaic tradition.
I don't even know why she started learning, you know, all the Hebrew that she did. She went to Israel, she went all over the world, my father, like, with us, and converted, which took a few years in Israel, and really studied and became somebody that Jewish people would go to for advice on Jewish things. So she really did well for herself there.
I was married by the Chief Rabbi of Tel Aviv, Chief Rabbi Frankel, and that was it. The nightmare was over. Came back to Ireland a year later with all my certificates and everything, and it was just such a relief, really, to have that over and to have the children kind of accepted everywhere. And I went to see the Chief Rabbi at the time, and he just said, well, you know, that's it now, you're like a daughter of Israel, you are a daughter of Israel, you're as Jewish as me, as my wife, and that's the way it is. So it was just, I could not describe it as anything but like climbing the Matterhorn or swimming the Nile, if the Nile were full of piranhas. That's what it was like. But it's something that I knew that I would have to do once I made that first leap into love. I just knew that whatever they asked of me, that's what I had to do. And having children and wanting to live in Dublin in the Jewish environment, there was just no other way.
When I went away, everything seemed to be okay, really. I didn't ever really know that anything was wrong. That was about 4 years ago, 5 years ago maybe. I think they've been separated now nearly 3 years. So it was just when I came back that my dad just wasn't there anymore. And I don't think that she would ever really, get over it. I don't think you can after being married for so long. So that was that, really. We started going out when I was about 16, I think. So it was 10 years ago now. I was very much into B'nai Akiva and wasn't heading off in that direction at all. But we just happened to meet and start going out together, and then...
I was ignorant of everything.
Yeah.
Of her religion?
Oh yeah, completely.
When did you find out?
I found out pretty soon that she was Jewish, but like didn't mean anything. And that was it. Like it was just, I hadn't come across this stuff.
I like him. I'm into good people, and I think he's a good person. But naturally, I feel that for her sake, I would like if she had met somebody as good as him in the community, and to keep the tradition going.
When Niall used to ring, they would say, "That guy is on the phone." They would never say his name. I don't think my dad ever said his name for about 4 years. It was always that guy, and he wouldn't answer the door if he knew it was Niall, things like that. It took me about a year to get him to be able to come to the house before we used to have to meet him on the corner or I'd go down to Niall's house. They didn't understand, like it was hard for Niall's family because they didn't know. To them it's kind of like they feel it's prejudice towards them because they're not Jewish, which in a way I suppose it is, but you just don't see it that way when it's yourself.
There is a great protection in the institution of marriage for Jewish people. It means a lot to them, the raising of children and just keeping the culture going.
Well, it was hypocritical what they were, the way they were treating me, because obviously they'd gone through the same thing themselves. But I think, I still think it's hypocritical, but they kind of said it's because of what we went through that we're telling you what you're going to be let in for, and this is the kind of stuff that you will be. But in their circumstance it was different because my father wouldn't have married my mother if she hadn't converted to Judaism.
It's an awful sacrifice to make, to ask for your partner to make. Her partner is Catholic, and it's, hardly fair to ask him not to eat this, that and the other when he's been reared with it.
I think it was when my parents split up that my father started seeing somebody Catholic, so it kind of went full circle then. So it was, he couldn't really say anything, and he didn't say any more after that. He started saying, now you've chosen Niall, and I just hope the best for you. It was a complete turnaround, which I've said it to him on many occasions. So it just seemed a lot of waste of time, really, all those years that he was going on that way. So to me it was quite hypocritical.
Yeah, I often do ask myself that question. Why did I bother? But I did bother, and I gave them, I won't say the choice, I would rather that they would stay within the Jewish world, of course I would. But I lived my life, and that's the way I look at it. Nobody could tell me what to do, and I just don't think anybody has the right to do that to anybody. They have to find their fate and their kismet the same way I found mine.
Last time I went to Shul was Erev Yom Kippur, and I haven't been to Shul since then. But I went there with a friend of mine, Lorraine, who got married as well at the same time as me, the exact same month. But she got married to somebody Jewish, an Israeli guy. And
we were together the whole time, basically, in shul and outside shul, talking to people, and everybody came up and wished her mazel tov, and not one person said it to me, like, out of everybody that was there. And they all knew, like, that I was married as well, but they all, like, totally ignored me and just said mazel tov to her. Like, it was like kind of like a death in the family or something. They don't mention it or something like that. So that really kind of, I knew then what it was going to be like, basically, even though I knew already, but that kind of brought it home. Like you always think that people are going to be, you know, compassionate, like, but they're not really. So that really was quite horrible, really.
It's my feeling that when people have children, that's when their culture suddenly begins to mean a lot to them, and they want, you know, exactly the same environment for their children.
The thing with having children, we've decided that they will be brought up Jewish anyway, because Niall is kind of an atheist at this stage. Yeah, so he doesn't feel strongly about his religion. So I would rather, because the childhood I had was great being Jewish in the community, I would like my children to have the same kind of security that we had when we were younger, because it was just, I mean, when we were younger, the Jewish friends are more like family than other friends. You can always, but in my day anyway, you could always turn to them quicker than you could somebody else. So I'd rather they had the security of that. I'd like them to go to Stratford and things like that.
I mean, her kids are going to be Jewish whether she likes it or not. Just knowing my sister, the little that I do know her, I think that they will have some sense of being Jewish anyway.
I've always said there's been a fantastic community, and it is, but ours is a dying community. I do recognise that. There's just, at a certain point, when too many young people go or too many families go, it's not viable anymore. You know, the people still are great as ever and friendly and hospitable, and we still can really show our heels when we do things, but the life's blood is going.
The roses and the daisies are blooming round the spot where we parted, when she whispered, "You'll forget me not." Where we parted, when she whispered, "You'll forget me not."
Anglo.
Oh my gosh. I can't, that must
I've never had fried gefilte fish. Snow. Oh my god. Ooh, that's gonna be good.
What do you say?
How long did it take? Oh, a couple of minutes, seconds. Not a blood and sweat to make the challah, and to rise it, and to bake it. Wait. When I first came here, you know, it was a mediocre sized community, and there were lots of people you didn't know. Now there's nobody you don't know. There's no face you don't recognise, and all the time you hear of people emigrating, it's quite unsettling. Because you wonder whether, you know, I came from Manchester, a large community with maybe 48,000 Jews, and I taught in the Jewish school there. And I came here in when was it, 78, 77, 78, and it was so small. Yet it was big, and I couldn't come to terms with the size of it, and just 2 butchers or, you know, 1 bread shop, and none of the facilities that we had in Manchester, none of the enormous, and yet it wasn't bad, but now it's shockingly small. The only thing is, it would be very nice if 5,000 Jewish families would come here and live here. We would have a marvellous life, because it really is paradise.
Feel about Jews in this country? No. Okay. Sorry.
I think there's probably an ambivalence towards them. They don't make up a very significant number of people.
Do you have any idea how many Jewish people there are in Dublin? No? Have you ever met a Jewish person here? No. No? Do you have any idea how they're regarded in this country? Do you think that they're generally well regarded by Irish people?
They are Irish people.
Have you ever met a Jewish person?
Never. No. Never.
Have you ever met a Jewish person in Dublin?
No, not in Dublin, but abroad and that, yeah. Okay.
But see that man there? He knows everything. I think he is one, actually.
What?
Jew.
He is one.
Jew.
But they're the ones with those candles, aren't they? Don't they have those candles? On Hanukkah, you mean? Yeah. Well, like, I suppose, like, you see them in shops and stuff now. Do you know how the Jewish people are regarded in this country? Are they liked?
Of course they are. Everybody's right in Ireland, aren't they?
I think the Ireland that perhaps people think of in America, their image is, of a country which they know to be Catholic. That image is a little out of date. Which Ireland, certainly Dublin, is a very cosmopolitan place, and I mean, it would be very, very rare to ever hear a kind of an anti-Semitic remark.
It's got big noses, don't you have big noses?
Yeah, well, we think Jews are all cool. They're all right.
Right.
Are you from Dublin?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Can we ask you some questions?
No.
Seriously?
Yeah.
How do you think Jewish people are regarded in this country?
I don't know. There you go.
And do you think Jewish people are well liked in this country?
I have yet to come across any major prejudices. Maybe the occasional person, but you just don't pay attention to them. The area I live in was predominantly Jewish.
Which area?
Portobello. The Jewish Museum is there.
What made you wander in here today?
Well, I saw a newspaper article and I wanted to come and visit it. We've a lot to learn from the Jewish people, I think, here in Ireland, majority being Catholics. I think morality has dropped worldwide and we're getting it very rapid here in Ireland. So I think we're at a stage where religion and our morals are really coming into question.
I personally have never encountered anything resembling anti-Semitism. Okay, but it strikes me is that if there was any prejudice about Jews, it was largely to do with mathematics, because there were never more than 3,000 to 5,000 Jews in Ireland, which is 0.001 of the community of the population.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, people say, there's never been that much anti-Semitism in Ireland, and historically, there's been one pogrom in the country, which was in Limerick in about 1903, and that was sort of the only isolated incident of a pogrom. And that was due to some local, priest, I could be wrong, but some local who sort of whipped up the whole whole anti-Semitic event.
I know that this sounds very old-fashioned. I know this sounds Old Testament. I know it sounds like crap. But the countries that have been good to the Jews have prospered. the countries that haven't been good to the Jews haven't done so bloody well.
Occasionally you'll find, but you'll find this anywhere in the world, but it's in a very small way. And that is that occasionally somebody will go by in a car and they'll shout something out through the window. Mm. But that really, thank God, is the extent to which I've seen it. I certainly hope.
You don't feel threatened here at all?
No.
As we got television in this country, okay, television was a huge educator about lots of things, and people would see outside of Dublin, they would see programs about Judaism, they would see programs about lots of things, so they became more understanding of what a Jew looked like. In other words, he looked no different to them.
Generally, I think the Gentile respects the Jew. And all the more so if he sees that the Jew is adhering to his religion. We're talking about a religious country, and they're going to church and they're frequenting the places where they should be. And if somebody's antagonistic towards them is one thing, but if somebody is not antagonistic towards them and is doing what he should be doing, I really believe that they do respect that.
But I'm quite fond of the Jewish community here. In fact, any profession I've dealt with is mostly Jewish, which makes me believe, am I in the right religion myself?
Meaning doctors and...
Yeah, doctors, yeah. My doctor is Jewish, my solicitor is Jewish. The law firm that I've gone to is Jewish, they're all Jewish. I've had correspondence with Margaret Taylor. They're the only ones that seem to be alive and listening and actionable. Mm. And you're talking about anti-Semitism, would the Irish people tolerate it? Yes, the majority of Irish people would tolerate it quite a lot and just say nothing, do nothing, and be inactionable, but I don't find that with the Jewish community.
I noticed in this population chart the first time I looked at it, I was expecting to see a big increase in the number of Jews that arrived around the time of World War II.
Yes.
And indeed, there were no refugees taken in, is that right?
No, that is not correct. There were a number of refugees. There were quite a number of Jewish families throughout different parts of rural Ireland who established businesses and established factories. For example, a tie factory, the Irish Bottle Company had Jewish people.
And they were given refuge during World War II?
Before World War II. They were all here. During the war, nobody came in whatsoever.
During the war and before, let's say the 1930s, late 30s, 40s, there would have been a few foreign people who came here, a handful, to probably escape from Europe, a handful. And then there were certainly English Jews who came over here to avoid the war in England.
Do you have any recollection at all about how the Jewish community in Ireland felt about the fact that they could not offer a safe haven to families or relatives?
I was too young at the time, so that I'm not. But I know that there was a refugee aid committee, and I know that attempts were made to bring refugees here. And I know that the government opposed it. I know that the Irish ambassador to Berlin was a Nazi in his outlook.
My father and mother would have voted solidly for the Fianna Fáil party, which was the party of Eamon de Valera, and which was the party of Bobby Briscoe, who was the outstanding Jewish politician and who was a buddy of de Valera's, and therefore the Jewish community had a representative who had the ear of the Prime Minister, who was one of his best buddies. So therefore they voted for Briscoe, they voted for de Valera.
The situation was that there had been an economic war between Ireland and England, as a result of which Ireland suffered more in this economic war, which de Valera established or set in motion. And there was then a terrible recession here, and there was considerable poverty.
I know that a lot of Jews have said, or a lot of people have said, that Eamon de Valera made a big mistake in signing a book or sending his condolences to Germany when Hitler was died and stuff like that. I can't judge about that. I don't know about that. I think that as a politician, he behaved in what he felt was correct as a politician. I would also say that a lot of people in Ireland were very pro-German, not because they were specifically pro-German, but they were anti-British, and the Germans helped the Irish fight the British.
Here, we've always had the sort of Britain and the British Empire and England as the major bad guy to look at when things went wrong. So if ever there was, you know, economic problems or anything like that, it was never a case of, oh, let's blame the Jews or let's blame any other minorities, because there isn't that many minorities in the country. It was always a case of, it's the English. And I mean, I suppose it's a good thing, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with it.
I think that, like all politicians, De Valera was in an impossible position, and if you choose to take a stance and say the man was wrong, fair enough. If you choose to say the man was doing what he felt was right, that's also right. I don't know, no. I wouldn't know.
I was born around the corner from here, 80 years, something years ago, and this street was full of Jewish shops.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Shalom. Shalom alaikum. Shalom alaikum. Alaikum shalom.
How long have you guys worked here?
Too long.
Linda 321. You're on.
He's the oldest in the shop.
He's
about 80 years here.
He's 80 years here. He's the antique.
Are you Jewish yourself?
No.
Or you're a kosher butcher?
Yeah, but not you. Not yet.
Right.
Not yet.
It's just we call Little Jerusalem because of all the shops, you know. But this is only the one that's left now.
The chicken house where they do the
And the
killing,
chicken house,
they used to do it every single day. There was hundreds being killed every single day. Now we only do it once a week.
So does the rabbi come in here?
Yes.
He's on holidays at the moment.
Is he?
He's in the skier
Right.
there.
Out in Mr. Galway.
Look at you know all the lingo.
Oh, easy.
You know all the lingo.
Well, it's 47 years.
Really, 47 years here.
But the pretzel now is... Pretzel's not kosher. No.
So this is it.
Pretzels is not kosher. It wasn't up to the standards of Rabbi.
The rabbi.
So.
Do people still shop there anyway?
Of course, you can't tell people that, you know.
Well,
I know
they still make challah.
And pretzel, yeah.
But it's not kosher.
If you're going by Chief Rabbi Broder, you buy it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Pretzels isn't kosher, no.
He has a lovely son.
A lovely son?
Very from, very. He's looking for a nice girl. Are you single?
I am.
Well, there you are.
I'm probably not from enough though.
He was going to Manchester, so that'll save him going to Manchester.
Save him going to Manchester, we can pick you up. How would you say matching him?
California girl.
How would you say matching him up?
A shidduch.
Shidduch. It's a word I've heard a lot since I've been in Ireland. And this is the last kosher butcher shop in town, is that right? In all of Ireland?
Yeah. All of Ireland.
Well, take that picture up there.
That's Bale up there.
That's the part.
And you miss poor Bella, she died out here. That was sad. She done her own chopped herring, chopped liver, had her own recipe for organ.
And she always did any cooking for visitors that came over. They all knew the name Bale and
Yeah. And she always had people round to her house on a Saturday.
Always. For Yom Tov and Shabbos, forever. She was Dublin. She was Dublin.
It's a real loss for the community.
Absolutely. I mean, they say people are indispensable, but there's only one Bela. Probably the shop will be sold and they'll move up near it now and near.
You have to be 5 to eat sweet. You have to be 5!
Oh, that rule, that's right. Why did I get it? Because we got engaged. Daniel, how did we get engaged? I bullied him into it. It's fine now because we're here. There is a certain amount of Jewish couples our age that we can socialise with, and
It's actually improved in the past year.
our age.
Yeah.
But as soon as we have kids, what next? There is no Jewish life for them.
You can have children who are brought up and, you know, they're told every day of their life that you have to marry in, and they only have Jewish friends, and then as soon as they get old enough, they leave the country to go to college, regardless of whether they're in England or Ireland or America or wherever, or they leave to go to a different city, and they go out with non-Jewish girls or boys or whatever. It makes no difference.
Yeah, I am keeping an open mind about where we live because I feel we're both living in our own separate homes at the moment, and when we live together once we're married and get more established and when kids comes along, I think Daniel will realise what I'm talking about, that there's just no Jewish future here for us socially or for our kids, because our kids' friends are going to be their cousins and you can't have a girlfriend or a boyfriend out of that. Here he is. Daniel's antisocial.
I'm not antisocial, I'm just realistic.
Shy.
I'm just realistic, and I know of enough people who've gone to England or whatever and have had...
So you're saying you probably will never move?
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying don't expect it. People, it's not this miracle cure.
I never want to have to leave here. I'm a home bird, I like it here.
But it's where you're from, you're Irish.
Yeah.
You're not just Jewish, you're Irish as well.
My family is here, I don't want to have to leave my family and my roots.
But it's your roots, you are Irish. You're not Jewish, you just happen to live in Ireland. You are Irish, and you know, why do you want to live in England, or why do you want to live anywhere else?
Jewish is why you've moved.
Okay, fine, but you're still Irish. You know, no one ever goes, are you Catholic or are you Irish? Yeah, the Pope is an Italian, and the Vatican, which is the centre of Catholicism, is in Italy. But no one ever says to Catholics, well, are you Catholic or are you Irish? Which I think really, you know, it's only because Ireland is seen as such a centre of Catholicism and that it's a Catholic country that, you know, people accept it so readily. So, I mean, Catholic people have a Catholic identity, so why shouldn't I have a Jewish identity as a Jewish person?
Come here. Okay, this is Stratford College. There is my sister in the dress with a cardigan, just there, holding hands with her teacher. God, she looks so cute. God, it's amazing seeing them as kids. I know what they all look like now as adults. And over here is Daniel's grandfather and grandmother at their wedding, just there. That one there. It's really amazing.
So in the last year you got engaged, bought a house.
Bought a house. That's hanging out.
Personally, I don't think the Jewish community sort of fits right in as like a square peg in a square hole. I think to a lot of people, Jews are still sort of a novelty.
The lump on the skirting board. Well, we got this house before we got engaged.
You did?
Yeah, a few months before. We queued for it. When was it? The end of April? No, the end of March, beginning of April.
But Daniel already knew you were going to be engaged, so.
Did he? I didn't. He kept me waiting.
I think, you know, you can get to a point where you're living your life your grandchildren might be. And, you know, you just can't do that. It's something I would think about and go, you know, I hope that it's not too bad, but I'm not going to really make it a big issue because I think you're just going nowhere.
I think Kobe is, you know, the next generation of Dublin Jewishness, and you know, the most important thing is to carry on Judaism in Ireland. You know, we're all here trying to, you know, keep the community together, and hopefully Kobe will be part of that.
Look down, see the sight, a city in a coat of light.
But essentially, I love living in Ireland. I love the climate here. I love the people here. This is where I've made my life and my living here.
Out on the waves
I think Judaism is one of those migrating religions. It moves into places and moves out of places and moves somewhere else and moves other places and comes back to them years later. And it's a traveling religion, really. And the fact that it's not here tomorrow doesn't mean it's not going to come back here again in 100 years' time.
Maybe they feel welcome here, Jewish people. I hope they do. I'd be very, very hurt and saddened to think that anybody was not made feel welcome in Ireland. The land is mine, saith the Lord.